والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد، أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. لقد كان لكم في رسول الله أسوة حسنة لمن كان يرجو الله واليوم الآخر وذكر الله كثيرا. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: من أحب سنتي فقد أحبني ومن أحبني كان معي في الجنة، أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. صدق الله العظيم وصدق رسوله النبي الكريم، ونحن على ذلك لمن الشاهدين والشاكرين، والحمد لله رب العالمين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. مولاي صل وسلم دائما أبدا على حبيبك خير الخلق كلهم. Most respected elders and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As many of us are well aware, we are in this Mubarak month of Rabiul Awwal. It is in this very great month that one of the greatest incidents had taken place, the migration, the hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum from Makkah to Mukarramah to Madinah to Munawwarah. In Makkah, the Muslims were oppressed. They could not practice Islam freely, and whatever was done had to be done secretly. But then with the advent of the hijrah, the migration of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, we find that an entire Islamic government was formed. And now the Muslims could practice Islam freely. They could bring Islam in their life without any fear of being attacked or being mocked at. Once Nabi alayhi salam and the Sahaba radiallahu anhum settled in Madinah al-Munawwarah, from time to time Nabi alayhi salam used to take a census and count the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, just to see how many Sahaba radiallahu anhum were present in Medina. So the first time Nabi alayhi salam took the census, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were 500 in number. On another occasion when Nabi alayhi salam made a count, then the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were 700 in number. And after some time, in the 4th or 5th year of Hijrah, when Nabi alayhi salam took a census, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were now 1,500 in number. This was in Medina, apart from the few Muslims that were in Makkah and Abyssinia. So approximately 1,500 Muslims in the world. And when the Sahaba radiallahu anhum came to know about the numbers, they became very elated and happy. And they said, now we will never ever be defeated in the battle. Whichever army it may be, from whichever part of the world they may come, we will never ever be defeated in the battlefield. Now if we have to look at it, Sahaba radiallahu anhum 1,500 compared to the superpowers of that time, the Romans and the Persians, whose numbers were in the hundreds of thousands. So the Sahaba radiallahu anhu were like a drop of water in the ocean. But although the lack of number, the lack of military strength and financial muscle, the Sahaba radiallahu anhum stood firm and fought and defeated the enemy. Perhaps one of the battles in which this was most evident was the Battle of Yarmouk. During this battle, the Muslims were a mere 40,000 compared to a 240,000 fully equipped army of the Romans who stood against the Muslims. And the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, despite the odds against them and seeming insurmountable, Sahaba radiallahu anhum defeated the enemy with the assistance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mawlana Sayyid Abu al-Hasan Nadwi rahimahullah says that it was well known that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, their background was a desert culture, a backward, a non-progressive civilization. In the words of Umar radiallahu anhu, we the Arabs were a disgraced nation. That was our reputation in the world. And then the superpowers at that time, the Romans and the Persians, were regarded as the most progressive and the most advanced in technology, philosophy, medicine, wealth, business, in their armies, in their weapons. So a nation that is regarded as a backward nation coming and inviting towards Islam to the most advanced and progressive of nations, we can well imagine how the Sahaba radiallahu anhum were looked at, how they were being mocked at. And then when the Sahaba radiallahu anhum began to prepare for war against these people laughed even more at the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, that you want to come, but look at the numbers of your army and look at what we have at our disposal, our armies, our weapons, etc. But what these people never realized was Sahaba radiallahu anhum were blessed with a divine blessing, a divine weapon with which they were very, very well equipped. Wherever they went, whatever they did, in their homes, in their businesses, in every aspect of their life, they held fast onto the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The victory of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum in the battlefield of war is something outstanding, amazing. But even more outstanding and amazing is their victory in another battlefield, the psychological battlefield of ideology and identity. The world may have regarded the culture and the ideologies of the Romans and the Persians to be the most advanced, but the Sahaba radiallahu anhum weren't swayed away by that influence. They upheld their Islamic identity, their Islamic lifestyle, which revolved around the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Unfortunately, with us today, respected friends and elders, we will go to some holiday destination, leave alone the Sunnah. Even already the faraid becomes compromised. We feel shy to lay down our musallas in some public place to perform our salah. We worried about this person and that person. Sahaba radiallahu anhu never have this inferiority complex within them. They were proud ummatis and Muslims of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. While every single person and believer has some degree of love for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his heart, a true lover is in actual fact the one who follows Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and who emulates Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in every facet of his life. True love is what emanates from the heart and then is reflected into a person's actions. Sahaba radiallahu anhum, their vision was set on the reality that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has come with a significant message for the whole of humanity. And true love and respect for him necessitates that acting upon his teachings. There was this yearning in their hearts to act upon the ways and the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Every moment of their lives was spent in teaching, explaining, in implementing the blessed Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted them honor, respect, to such an extent that even the superpowers of that time succumbed before their supremacy. When Hazrat Hudayfa bin Yaman and Hazrat Rabi radiallahu anhuma were sent in a convoy to the Persian king to discuss some terms and conditions before engaging in battle. So they left from Madinatul Munawwarah for the king's palace, and after a long journey they reached the gates of the palace. They were tired, their clothes were dusty, their hair was disheveled. So the guard that was at the gate, he was dressed in his neat uniform and his armor, and he tells the Sahaba radiallahu anhum that, look, listen, you cannot come into the presence of our king with these clothes. Not in this condition. We will provide you with special clothes, royal clothes. You will wear that clothing and come into the presence of our king. Hudayfa radiallahu anhu goes up to that guard and he tells him that these clothes are the clothes of our king. This is how we have been commanded to dress. And we will go in the presence of your king with these same clothes. If he's not happy with these clothes on our bodies in his presence, then we are not willing to compromise on the Sunnah of our Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, something we might say so trivial, so insignificant. Sometimes you need to compromise a little bit here, a little bit there. You lose the battle, but you win the war. So the Sahaba radiallahu anhum never compromise on the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And if we were in that situation, we would have jumped for the opportunity to try on some royal clothes. Sahaba radiallahu anhu stood firm unto the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So Hudayfa radiallahu anhu made it very, very clear to the guard that we're not going to compromise. So this message now goes to the king, and while they are waiting for the reply, Hazrat Rabi' bin Amir radiallahu anhu takes out his sword. Now Sahaba radiallahu anhu were simple people, but they never have much of the world, of this dunya. And whatever little they had also was not in the best condition. So he took out his sword and the handle was a bit loose. So he had this leather strap tied to his sword, and he began to tighten it. And the guard that was behind the gate, he scoffed at him and he told him that it is with these weapons you want to come fight the Persian army. You know, our armies, our mighty armies, and what weapons we have, and this type of shield and that type of sword, and you want to come face us? So Hazrat Rabi' bin Amir radiallahu anhu told him that no doubt we have seen the sword, but we haven't seen the hand behind that sword. So, and then he told the guard that go and bring the strongest of your shields and your swords, and you will see what will happen to you. So these people thought that, you know, the Sahaba radiallahu anhu are just talkers. So they said they had this shield that was imported from, and it was a very, very strong shield. It had many layers of steel, and it was a very, very strong shield. They bring it, they put it up for Hazrat Rabi' radiallahu anhu. Hazrat Rabi' radiallahu anhu, taking the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, brings his sword crushing down onto that shield. With the permission of Allah, that entire shield broke into bits and pieces and fell to the ground. Now, this was something that amazed and shocked everyone around. Such a strong shield, and in one blow the entire shield into bits and pieces. This also reaches the king, and the king is also surprised and shocked. So he says, send them in. Sahaba radiallahu anhu going to the palace. It was the practice at that time that the king's guests were invited for some refreshments before coming into the presence of the king. Sahaba radiallahu anhum also went. They partook of those refreshments, and while partaking of those refreshments, Hazrat Hudayfa radiallahu anhu, a small morsel fell out from his hand onto the floor. Now look at the instant reaction, not worried about what people will say. That well-rooted sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he immediately bent down, picked it up. So the person next to him nudges him and he tells him that you mustn't be in the presence of the king's men. They are watching and observing every move of yours. What type of people you are. It does not look good that you have an entire table of the best of foods, but you are worried about one morsel on the floor. So the narration mentions that Hudayfa radiallahu became angry in full view of of whoever was around it on the table. He picked up that morsel, he blew it, he dusted it, he put it into his mouth, and he swallowed it. After swallowing it, he said to the person that nudged him, أَتَتْرُكُ سُنَّةَ حَبِيبِي لِهَؤُلَاءِ الْحُمَقَةِ? Do you want me to leave the sunnah of my Habib sallallahu alayhi wa sallam because of the fear of being embarrassed in front of these fools? That is how the Sahaba radiallahu anhu viewed them and their ways, as foolish ways. After partaking of the refreshments, then the Sahaba radiallahu anhum are now summoned to the chambers of the king. They go into the room, and everyone that is entering that room is now bowing down to the king. Sahaba radiallahu anhum enter without bowing. That we only bow to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not even Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Who is this king that we need to bow down to him? For the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, it was never that we need to go with the flow or we being impolite. They never worry of what the king would say. Rather, what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam will say, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, that was their focus. Now when they come into the room of the king, they see that everyone is standing and the king is seated. Hudayfa radiallahu anhu asks the translator, he goes and he asks him that why is it that your king is seated and everyone is standing? Sahaba radiallahu anhu only had one way of life, one lifestyle, the lifestyle of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Everything was in accordance with the lifestyle of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So the translator tells him that this is out of respect for our king. When we are in his presence, then we will stand and he will sit. Hudayfa radiallahu anhu tells him that this is not what our King Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has taught us. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sat, everyone sat. When he stood, everyone stood. When he walked, at times it would be difficult to distinguish who Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was amongst the crowd of the Sahaba radiallahu anhu. So there was no special treatment. Thereafter, so this Hudayfa radiallahu anhu tells the translator that, tell your king, either he stays like how he's standing, or we sit like how he is sitting. So just imagine, in their palace, in their territory, in their country, surrounded by their armed guards and still upholding the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Umar radiallahu anhu mentions that كُنَّا أَحْقَرَ النَّاسِ وَأَذَلَّ النَّاسِ وَأَقَلَّ النَّاسِ, that we, the Arabs, we were the worst of nations. We were the most disgraced of nations. This was our reputation in the entire world. فَأَعَزَّنَا اللَّهُ بِالْإِسْلَامِ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had blessed us with honor, dignity and respect through Islam, through the lifestyle of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Umar radiallahu anhu thereafter mentions, فَمَهْمَا تَطْلُبُ الْعِزَّ بِغَيْرِهِ, that if we want to earn this respect and honor in any other way of life besides Islam and besides the lifestyle of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, then Umar radiallahu anhu mentions, يُذِلُّكُمُ اللَّهُ, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will disgrace us. And we see what is not happening to the Muslim Ummah, respected friends. Our honor, our respect, our dignity lies in following the Sunnah lifestyle of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Imam Malik rahimahullah said, describing the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, that as-sunnatu safinatu Nuh, man rakibaha naja, wa man takhallafa anha gharaqa. That the Sunnah is like the ark of Nuh alayhi salam. That person who will board that ship, he will be safe. And that person who will refrain from boarding that ship, he will drown. And when we speak about Sunnah, it is not only our dress or our outer appearance. Sunnah is an entire way of life. From the time we wake up in the morning, our eyes open in the morning, till the time we close our eyes at night, every aspect of our life has been chalked out and practically shown to us by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, whether it's how we talk, how we walk, how we conduct ourselves in our homes, in business, in every aspect of our life, to such an extent that even when it comes to relieving ourselves, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has shown us. And when we will bring and create this love and admiration of Sunnah in our life, and we will implement it in our lives, then inshallah we will see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant us honor and respect. We are doing these actions, all we need to do is align it with the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the understanding and give us the tawfiq of practicing. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha